How's it going, folks? Welcome back to Galactic Tactics, your home for all things Twin Suns in Star Wars Unlimited. I'm Caleb. Thank you for joining us. Today, we're going to be talking about deck building. It's going to be a little bit different, as I'm going to kind of talk about it in a kind of premiere format to start, and then how that kind of translates over to Twin Suns, as we're going to get more decks, or more sets. But right now, it's still kind of in its infancy. We don't have a lot of synergies yet in the singleton format. So that's how we're going to kind of start it. But first, we want to thank Robert for being our editor and longtime friend of the channel. Thank you for everything you do. And if you do want to support the channel, make sure you like, subscribe, leave a comment. Just let me know, what you guys want to hear, listen to, be more active in. So without further ado, let's get going. Building a deck is not necessarily what everyone makes it out to be. And with that, I like to think of deck building, as kind of a more fun outlet. Yes, you have your meta decks. You're going to have your Boba Fett decks, everything that's hitting top competitors, whatever, in tournaments. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about having a fun deck, which is really kind of almost lost its way because everyone wants to, be the most competitive. I like to have the most fun. So I've been playing the not necessarily competitive play, but the weekly play at a couple shops in town. So in Minnesota. Thanks for having me out there, guys. Awesome. Lewis Game Shop, you guys have been super awesome. Let me come out and play, and having everybody. Great prize support for everything. I actually pulled a couple Vaders, or a Vader off of a prize pack, and then a couple other boosters. I also got a Vader from there as well, and my Lukes that are in this deck I'm actually about to talk about. So, sorry, side tangent, just want to shout them out. But I built the deck because I wanted a Spectre deck. And that's really what kind of sparked me wanting to make this video, was, just kind of the thought process of what I wanted to do, and how you could kind of take those same aspects, in your own deck building, if you're wanting to play Premier, if you're wanting to play, just kind of a weekly fun deck, and, not be a Boba Fett, and just be that sweaty guy who just can't even, pick up his cards because your palms are so sweaty, and have some fun. And that was really the premise behind my deck, and it actually made people smile to see a deck that you're like, oh, clearly I'm playing Spectres, because I've got Hera out. They're like, oh, you're playing Spectres, this is fun. And then I win with it because they don't know how to play against it. And sometimes the best, meta shift is just to play something different, because people don't know how to prepare against it. Because there's not a bunch of competitive Spectre decks, then people don't know how to play against it, because there's not just one deck. So let's just kind of start at the beginning with all deck building, and that's, what do you want your deck to be? For me, it was, with this deck, I've got it in my hand, shuffling it right here. It was, what do I want the base of my deck to be? Well, I want to play Spectres. For you, you might just want to play a card. You might just want to play, I got Luke Skywalker. I want to play Luke Skywalker. You don't have to build from a leader. You don't have to build from anywhere. I actually put Yoda in this deck just because I got one of the cool holographic weekly play Yodas. And I just put it in this deck because I wanted it. And which is a very valid reason to build a deck, go towards a deck, and do that. So for me, my overall of my deck is what I wanted to do. I wanted to play Spectres. And there's, the Spectres. You have Ezra, Sabine, Zeb, Hera as your leader, and Kanan. So there's 11 of the ground units right there. Just kind of the way I put it in, and deck list is going to be in the description for you to kind of look at. There's also the Ghost in there as well, so that's also some space units, and then Carabas is targeted removal. So that's a good chunk of it right there. So after that, kind of looking at it, I'm like, well, I can't just build an entire deck based off of this. What is my deck already doing? So first, what is it wanting to do? Play Spectres. I want to play Spectres. That's what I'm doing. And then after that, well, how do I fill in the gaps? So I wanted to throw Jedi lightsabers onto Kanan and Ezra. So with that, I'm like, okay, so I can use some more Force support. So I added Luke Skywalker. Is kind of my big top end card. And if you don't know, Luke Skywalker, he's a big 7-drop, blue-white, 6/7. He's a Force Jedi and a Rebel. Come back to that. Restore 3, so he's got a pretty solid thing when he attacks. He's going to heal up my base a little bit if he even makes it to the next round, I found out. But when played, give an enemy unit -3/-3 for this phase. If an enemy unit was, or if a friendly unit was defeated this phase, give that enemy -6/-6 for this phase instead. So it takes a lot of boxes right there. So that's kind of my big, sweet. If I'm playing Luke Skywalker, hopefully I'm about to win. Because he's not really sticking around, kind of get rid of their big unit and do its thing. So I added a little spice to that because we've got the Force. We've got Yoda. It's kind of a little bit more Force with also utility. He's got that Restore 2. When defeated, choose any number of players, really just myself. They each draw a card. So he's a 2/4. He can swing. He can defend if he needs to. Pretty cheap as a 3. You can play him on turn 2. Super awesome. So that's kind of how I started to fill in. After that, if we look at everything, like I said, they're all rebels. All of these guys are rebels except for Yoda. He's the only non-rebel card in this deck. So I added a little rebel support. So with that rebel support, I did, where is he? General Dodonna, other friendly rebel units get +1/+1. So that's all of my specters. So Chopper, he's a 1 yellow and white, 1/3. When you have another specter, he gets raid 1 on attack. Discard a card defending player's deck. If it's an event, exhaust that resource that player controls. So as it started to build itself, every card really has value, building upon itself. Kind of looking at, the overarching thing is, all right, so now we've got rebels. I want to have Mon Mothma, so I can draw into these rebels. Really like Mon Mothma in all rebel decks. She's kind of a staple. She's a 2, green and heroic, 1/3 rebel official. When played, search the top 5 cards of your deck for a rebel card, reveal it, and draw it. So it's not just rebel units. We're building it up, so we have a lot of rebel cards. We can play or pull just about any of our possible rebel units, but also our events. And the big event that I really like in this deck is Rebel Assault. It's Leia on a stick. I've closed out a lot of games with Rebel Assault. It's a Rebel card, so it's Rebel support, and then attack with a Rebel, it gets +1/+0. Then attack with another Rebel, it gets +1/+0. So as you kind of see, we're really just kind of filling the gaps with what we have to, start turning on the deck. And then you start figuring out the combos. So like something cool that I did to really end a game out of nowhere was on a turn, I attacked him with Ezra. He was buffed up. I think he had some experience tokens from, the wing leader. So he came in, he was swinging with 5 just unanswered to the base. And then with his ability, so with Ezra, he's a 3 yellow white. He's a 3/4 force. So he's got that force. He's a rebel and he's a specter. He ticks all the things. When this unit completes an attack, look at the top card of your deck. You may play it, discard it, or leave it on top of your deck. So I played Ezra the turn before, attacked him with him for 5. Well, the card on top was Rebel Assault. I played it for 1, attacked with 2 more rebels, closed out the game. It was a super awesome turn because it was just a big swing. I think it was like 15, 16 damage all on 1 turn because I had buffed everybody. I was ready to go. I swung in with Ezra first because that's really what you want to do with Ezra. Get him in first because then it's kind of like you get to draw and play, make your hand a little bit bigger. So it's almost like a draw 3 on your turn. Especially if you're towards the late game, you have 2 cards in your hand. You can maybe play those, but let's see what's on top. Combo in, and that just finished the game outright. So it's super awesome. And that was kind of the baseline of everything. And throughout playing with it, I started kind of going in and out. This is more of the fine-tuned version, but on another earlier version, I really wanted to play, who is it? It was Wedge Antilles. So his thing when the vehicle comes in, it gains ambush, it attacks, does its thing. Because in a perfect world, I really liked, Wedge on turn 4, the Ghost on turn 6, busting in, it's a 7, gives something a shield, it attacks, comes into shield, maybe destroys something. That was a perfect world, but kind of through playing, I never got to do that. And that's something else to really think about in the deck building is, play your deck. You can only theory craft so much. I like to play against myself sometimes, so I'll just put kind of 2 decks against each other because I know what's in the other one's hand. I know how the other one plays. I know what's coming. So constantly I'm battling against myself and starting to kind of figure out, what works, what doesn't work. But even with, just playing against myself, I didn't realize how good of a card Rebel Assault was in this deck. Because it's that Leia aggro, kind of get that damage in before that they can do something. So like priority Ezra into a Rebel Assault, that could be a game-winning turn right there, and you don't really see it out of anywhere, which is super awesome. So that's really just kind of the theory crafting of it. So I really wanted, like I said, build specters. Let's build around specters. Okay, well, I've got some force users. Let's throw some force users in there. We've got a lot of rebels. Let's add some rebel support. For other games, that might be too many things in one deck. But kind of the nice thing about, Star Wars Unlimited and what we're doing is there's no mana. So you're not constrained by, having to add all of this, the lands, the mana into your deck, when you can resource anything. Everyone's kind of on the same curve. I mean, obviously you're gonna have your resupplies, your DJ Death Stars, those folks, but you're not constrained by in deck building. Yes, there will be curve. We'll kind of talk about that in a little bit. Not necessarily as important with the process. It's more of kind of like a fine tuning, if you will. So we'll come back to that. So you're not constrained by having to add lands. You're not constrained by having to add colors. Your color identity is your leader and your base. There you go. 3 colors, boom, there you go. And then you can even play outside of your color, which is super awesome. So kind of going in, you can be more laxed, if you will. So like even with the deck I built here, it was 60 cards. I was playing it competitively at 60 cards. The minimum's 50. Some people would tell you, that's taboo. You can't do that. You got to be at the bare minimum. But I was playing it at 60 perfectly. It was doing everything I wanted to do. And the other kind of cool part behind it is if you have kind of 2 different strategies, you can sideboard in if you're into that. I don't like to sideboard because I'm not that competitive, not that sweaty. On like a weekly play, we're playing for packs, we're having fun. I like to just, have all my cards in. But when you have those different avenues, you can play off that. And because you resource what you want, starting at the beginning of the game, you can go, okay, I'm pretty, space unit focused right now. Let's play into space. And that's, game 1. There have been games that I haven't actually played a single Spectre because that's just kind of the way it happened. I didn't want to play the Spectres at that time. I resourced them, play something else, Maybe, there was a little bit kind of heavy on that side. They're attacking me. I'm space focused. Well, I've got an Echo-based Defender or Kanan. Well, I want to play the Echo-based Defender and resource Kanan because I need to put, a Sentinel on my ground side. Well, I can keep playing space. One of my games, I started with a restored ARC Trooper, and then threw down a Wing Leader, and, I was swinging 4 with that restored, not ARC Trooper, that restored ARC 170, and just kind of restoring one. And that restore ended up being like 5 damage taken off, and I was just swinging unanswered because they didn't have any space units, because space is kind of underutilized. There's not, a whole plethora of space units. As we get more sets, people definitely start to balance out a little bit more. But if I have, a Wing Leader, an Alliance X-Wing, and a restored ARC 170 in my opening hand, I'm going space. Hopefully I can get, something to deal with that ground units, to kind of keep them at bay. But most people, they don't go into space. So that kind of brings me back to, just playing a deck that you enjoy because people aren't used to it. You know, everyone knows what Boba Fett's going to do. You're playing, you know, double cunning. I think it's cunning. I can't remember. Double orange, yellow. And, you know, they're going to waylay you. They're going to send stuff back to your hands. It's just going to be a long, oppressive game. Or you can come at them with, you know, lit specters, because that's what we're talking about. And they don't know what to do because they've never played against a specter deck. I've beaten Boba Fett because they just didn't know what to do. You know, they're doing their sideboard thing and trying to get it all together. Like, oh, I'm going to answer it with this, this, and this, and I'm going to put in my regional governor so that they can't play Sabine Wren. Then I'm going to do this so they can't play Chopper. I'm like, all right, I'll just play around that, and I'll just resource Sabine, and then I'll play a little space, and then I'll play Yoda because, you know, you were thinking, oh, he's just going to play Spectres. Well, I've got, you know, a side plan. So really just keeping it fresh is kind of another thing I'd say. Just kind of going back to, you know, here's the main thing is doing playing Spectres, but here's this other secret thing we're doing. Not necessarily secret, but like this side thing, you know, plan B. For me, plan B is, you know, go straight to space. There's only 12 space units, but, you know, if I draw a lot of those to begin with, you know, that could be game. And then there's my force units. You know, I've got lightsabers. I've got 2 Jedi lightsabers and a Luke's lightsaber. Chances are I'm going to draw a lightsaber and just go full aggro. I'm going to drop it on there. Chances are I'm going to attach it to a Jedi, but, you know, even Chopper with a Jedi lightsaber is super fun because it's just a big, nasty Chopper because you're swinging in with 5 and then doing everything that Chopper does. So that's kind of a difference between other card games and Star Wars Unlimited is you have a little bit more freedom to go kind of less structured. Yes, you want to have a thing, but you can have like a sub thing and maybe even a third sub thing if they all go together because, you know, they are all rebels except for Yoda. There's a strong force, and then you have all the Spectre things, you know. Even the Spectre things like Hera, when you deploy her, just kind of looking at it here, when you attack with her, she doesn't necessarily give a bonus to just Spectres. She gives a bonus to unique units. And this deck is built around unique units. I think the only ground unit that's not unique is the Echo-based Defender in this deck. And it just serves a role of, you know, protecting my ground units, in which, you know, they're all unique, every single one of them. And then even in the sky, I guess in space, there's not as much, but the Ghost is also a unique unit in space. So there's a lot of unique units, and that's a sub theme, if you will. That way, I'm getting that value off of Hera when I play her. I don't necessarily need to have a bunch of Spectres out because all of my ground units are unique. They all get the buff. And then even with the Ghost, when I get the Ghost out, if you don't know, because it's not a highly played card, the Ghost is a 6 blue and a white. It's a 5/5, and it's a Rebel Vehicle Transport Spectre. So you get that Rebel, you get that Spectre. It comes in shielded, which is awesome. And then when played and on attack, you may give a shield token to another Spectre unit. So this one is more of the Spectres, but you have a lot to deal with. And then even Hera and the Ghost can come out on the same turn. Swing with Hera, give your Ghost an experience token, and then next turn swing with the Ghost, give Hera a shield token. And that's really the idea of the deck building is, you know, just kind of start filling in what you want to do. Another part that kind of got filled in later was the Force is with me. I was just kind of going through my Force cards. I think I was just building another deck, and I was reading the Force is with me. If you don't know, is a 4 blue and white. Choose a friendly unit, give 2 experience tokens to it. If you control a Force unit, also give a shield token to the chosen unit. You may attack with the chosen unit. So this is another one where, you know, I kind of want to go a little aggro with it. I want to build up. This is a card kind of like Rebel Assault. So you're buffing up and you're attacking, but this time, you know, both that extra power is going on to 1 unit. And if you happen to do it on a, I don't know, an Ezra or a Kanan or a Luke or a Yoda, then you also, give it a shield. It's kind of cool. So it's super cool if you need to like just kind of bash into something, give it a shield, it just kind of soaks it up, destroy that big thing that you need. Super awesome. And it's just a friendly unit. So you can give, one of the space units this as well. And it's just if you control a force unit. You don't necessarily need to target a force unit. You just have to have one somewhere, which is a high probability with kind of the way that the deck is constructed. So just kind of finding those things that, kind of help bolster what you're trying to do. Because like I said, I really like what Rebel Assault was doing in the deck. I found it, for kind of one cost more, but it also does kind of a separate utility thing to help me kind of defeat a big unit that might defeat me next turn, or does the same thing and just kind of swings into a base for something big. And again, if I can get an Ezra to attack first and then I can pull forces with me, I'm basically playing, a super Rebel Assault because I've attacked with 2. So that's kind of different ways to think about it. Ezra's, kind of a cool combo enabler in this deck. And that's another cool thing is, as you're really playing with your deck, you can find these neat little niche combos, like what I wanted to do with Wedge and the Ghost. It just didn't really work out. Then kind of the same thing is, you'll be like, all right, this doesn't work, let's pull it, but let's focus more on this. Which is super fun and kind of the fun part of deck building, and how you get those just wins out of nowhere, because people don't know what to expect. They don't know that you're going to pop in with an Ezra, then play a forces with me, pop in with another thing. It's just super different. Everyone knows the meta. That's why it's called the meta. So kind of. That's the brainstorming part of it, is that's the fun part. After that, yes, we can talk about your curve. The nice part about Star Wars Unlimited is you start with 2 resources. So if you have, a plethora of 2 drops, then you can probably play something. This deck, you've got 3 Sabines at 2, you've got 2 Mon Mothmas at 2 to go help you find some more units, draw those up. You've got 3 choppers at 1, and then I think that's it for grounds. And then you can drop an Alliance X-Wing and then a Wing Leader right behind it to kind of bolster that Alliance X-Wing. So there's plenty of 2 drops. After that, I haven't actually broken down my cost that much, because you kind of think about it as you're building. Even with this deck, you really top out at 4 for the most part, and then you've got 2 Zebs at 5 and then 2 Yodas at 7. That's really it for grounds. And then for the Ghost to 6. I found, kind of playing games of Star Wars Unlimited are pretty quick. They don't really go past turn 8 or 9 if you're just kind of playing casually. If you put 2 Bobbas against each other, I hate you for it. I've seen it, and those matches go for like 40 minutes each in way too many turns, and there's way too much going on. I don't like you. I'm sorry. I don't like you. Just at like a weekly play kind of deal. You don't have to get that sweaty. This is a public service announcement. If you're playing that at a weekly play, you're the problem. Sorry. I'm sorry. That was very aggressive, but someone needed to say it, and unfortunately, it was me. So I forgot where I was even. Oh yeah. So it kind of really builds itself, and you want to just kind of think about, what do I really want to do? If I have a lot of ramp in my deck, if you're playing with DJ Death Star, if you're playing with resupplies, that's also another card I took out of this deck was resupply. I thought, if I'm playing green, I got to have resupply. Most of the time I wanted to play other cards. Resupply kind of slowed me down, because the way I built the deck, I didn't necessarily need to ramp into my leader to win. There were a couple of times, I didn't play Hera once, because, I was just kind of beefing out and going so aggro. I was winning in turn 4 or 5. just kind of with the way the deck is set up and how surprising it was to people. So unless you're trying to ramp into your leader, then you don't need as much ramp as you think, because the way that, you know, turns are structured. It's not back and forth. I mean, it's back and forth, but it's not, you know, interrupt this, interrupt that, you know, what's going on all in this one thing. It's kind of paced out for you. And kind of building it, it's, you know, what do I do? Okay, now what are you going to do? Now what am I going to do? And you only have so much time from turn to turn to kind of play your cards, do your thing. And for me, resupply didn't fit into that. I really wanted to play, you know, multiple cards. I wanted to get my specters down because, you know, that's what I want to do. I want to play my cards. I want to play my specters. I want to get Chopper out. I want to get Ezra out. I want to throw a lightsaber on somebody. And that's what I want to do with this deck, which, you know, I don't need to ramp into it. And then even, you know, with Hera, you know, she doesn't do anything until you deploy her. So I don't need to worry about her until she kind of gets out. And then even on the top ends, when I play this deck, and this is, you know, something when you're building, is how many resources do I need to make my deck happen? For this, playing it and going and playing against other people, I found once I get to 6 resources, I now just draw 2 cards. I don't resource past 6 because I don't have anything bigger than 6, which is the Ghost, except for Luke. When I'm playing, I'm kind of resourcing everything. Once I get to 6, I'm like, all right, I'm happy. Let's play my cards. Let's draw 2 now. And that's how you kind of think about, you know, your game plan with what you're doing. So I'm running 6 resources until I get a Luke Skywalker, and there's only 2 in the deck. But if I get it, oh, sweet. I've been kind of getting these 2 cards every turn, and now I'm going to resource 1, and I'm going to play Luke Skywalker and playing around it. So thinking about your resource curve is more of, where do I want to get my resources to? As kind of like we talked about is, you know, there's no mana, there's no land. You can resource any card. You can, you know, take whatever, figure out your game plan and be like, all right, this doesn't fit in my game plan. This is now a resource, which is super cool and helps you kind of build, you know, cooler decks because you have more cards to play with, you know. You're not just taking 33% of your deck and going, well, this is things to help you play other cards. Everything helps you play. So the way I really think about it is, what am I getting to play my deck? Like I said, for this deck, it's 6 resources. If I get to 6 resources, I can happily play my deck. Boom. I can play, you know, when I get to 6, you know, a Chopper, an Ezra, and a Sabine, all on one turn. You can play, I don't know, a Chopper and a General Dodonna. That's 5, and no, that's 5. You can play an Alliance X-Wing and a Restored Arc 170, and I don't know, and a Yoda probably. I don't know. Math is hard. No, not that. Sabine, Mon Mothma, and Chopper. So you can play multiple cards, which is super nice. And then even with like Strike True, that's 3 costs. I can play a Strike True and an Ezra. I can play Metal Ceremony whenever. Rebel Assault, I can play that plus Zeb, and you know, kind of do that. So that's the way I really think of kind of resource curving, your mana curve, whatever you want to call it, is what number of resources do I need to get to happily play my deck. And when I get to those resources, now I'm getting extra card draw, because now instead of, you know, draw 1, resource 1, you're drawing 2 and you have the resources you need. And then when you get to that big card, you know, whatever it is you're playing towards, for this card, you know, the big, you know, meaty guy is Luke Skywalker at 7. He's the only 7 drop. So if I get to 6, I can play my entire deck now except for 1 card. So when I draw that one card and I want to use Luke Skywalker to either close out the game or get rid of their Darth Vader that they just played, because it does let you go to any unit. So yeah, give an enemy unit, it's not an enemy, not a leader unit, -6/-6 after kind of playing around it. Then boom, now I got a Luke Skywalker. And when you draw 2, you go, all right, this one doesn't work into what I need to do right now. Now I've got 7. Now I'm playing Luke Skywalker. It's a little bit of a tell too, if you play multiple times against somebody. But that's kind of the way I think about it is, here's this, boom, I can play my deck, and everything's really built around that. So obviously different decks are going to be different. You know, with a Vader deck, you definitely want to ramp up. You want to get to your leader. With this deck, not necessarily. And every deck's going to play a little bit differently, which is super fun. And then kind of after that, you know, filling out the deck, kind of figure out the curve. You want to interact with your opponent's board. You really do. You know, this is a social game, and you need to do things, you know, to your opponent's side of the board. So having, you know, some kind of targeted removal. This is, you know, something I've always thought about, you know, in my deck building is you need card draw, you need ramp, you need targeted removal. I think I actually learned that from the command zone a long time ago. And it's really right. So like with this deck, you know, for card draw, we've got Mon Mothma. There's only, you know, 2 of her, but because the way that the deck is structured and you're not trying to get through lands, I only need a couple of her, just to kind of maybe find that one rebel card I need, maybe find that rebel assault, maybe find that Ezra to start comboing off, maybe find, you know, Luke, just because I want to finish the game. So there's my card draw. My ramp, I don't need ramp in this deck, so I don't have it. Like I said, I took the ramp out. And then targeted removal, that's something that, you know, definitely you want to do. So with this deck, you know, we have Luke Skywalker. You know, he is that targeted removal of however much you want. You've got options. You got to play around it to get that 6 and take off that big unit. But he's targeted removal. He's a big targeted removal. He does other things. Karabast, it's a 2-drop, you know, red in a way. It's a Spectre, so I can play a little red here. It's going to do a minimum of 1 damage, no matter what. So, friendly unit deals damage to an enemy unit equal to the amount of damage on the friendly unit +1. So it has no damage. It's just +1 damage, which will take out, you know, either something that's about to die, or like a stormtrooper, things like that. You know, it's minimum 1, but you know, as kind of folks try to beat down maybe your Luke Skywalker or beat down your Echo-based defender, that's, you know, if it's got 2 damage on it, it's not boosted up, then that's going to be, you know, 3 damage. That's taking out a unit. If you buff up, which has happened to me a couple times, you know, one of your cards. So like I had an Ezra that was buffed up to like a 9/10, I think it was. Just kind of throwing a lightsaber and experience tokens and some other things just kind of all happened. It was awesome. And they were just kind of swinging in. Well, I kind of figured out the math, and kind of after they swung in, you know, he had, you know, he's down to 1-2 health. Can't remember what it was. You know, I used Karabast, got rid of their big unit for the next turn. So wanting to interact is something you need to do so you can, you know, kind of get that upper hand. Karabast I like because, you know, yes, you're doing damage to me, but I'm profiting off of it. Strike True, definitely going to be a staple in every single green deck. Really like it just because it's easy. You know, if you throw a Luke down, if it survives next turn, it's going to do 6 damage or something, boom. With this deck, you're buffing up a lot of things, so, you know, you can definitely use it to get rid of something. If you're about to die because they have 1 more unit to swing, get Strike True down, boom, out, and hey, that's something to do. And then even like the Force is with me, it can be targeted removal. If you give it to something and you have a Force unit out, give it a shield, well, boom, I'm going to swing in and defeat your unit, and I'm just going to soak it up with a shield token. Boom, nailed it. So shield tokens can be a form of targeted removal in this game. So really starting to think, you know, outside of the box, you know, oh, this is a shield token, this is experience token. It's, oh, a shield token is targeted removal. There was someone was using, I think it's Rock, Thrawn's companion, basically the assassin with death touch. Super nasty. You know, you put a shield on him. I think she like ambushed him in. He had the shield, and then just defeated my huge unit, even with the shield on. And you know, that was super cool. Like, that is targeted removal, a target removal card. Han Solo, he can technically be a target removal card too, because he's got that first strike feature. So if he hits first, if he defeats the unit, you got him boosted up, and he does it. Well, he's not taking anything back. Boom, target removal. That's kind of the way I think about it. Is, you know, what is the effect? How does it help me? Even for, you know, just experience tokens, that could be a form of target removal, because, you know, you're boosting it up, you're taking more damage, and Sentinel is also kind of a form of target removal as well. Kind of all over the place, but I really like the idea of Sentinel being targeted removal, because you're playing it, you're forcing people to, you know, swing their units into it or do nothing. Making your opponent do nothing could be a form of target removal, because, you know, they don't want to swing into you because they're going to lose that unit. So you're playing something, you're basically taking something else out of the game. I've had folks, you know, like, oh, I don't want to swing into this because it'll destroy it or defeat it, and I need it for next turn, so I'm not going to do it. And, well, I survived and, you know, comboed off. So that's super cool, in a different way of thinking about it. Even General Dodonna, he is kind of a Sentinel unit. Comes out, he's a big body, gives everything else, you know, that +1 anthem, but people are going to want to defeat it, and they're going to, you know, use resources to take out that General Dodonna. He's not necessarily the scariest thing on the field, which makes your opponent, you know, think that he is, because he's giving this huge buff to everybody. But I mean, really, at the end of the day, yes, it's +1/+1. You're cheating the system, you're cheating the resources, but you're really, you know, forcing your opponent to deal with it, which for me is another form of targeted removal. Just something to really think about there. And then just kind of finishing off, you know, I like decks like this because, you know, they're super fun to play because I made them. They're not the meta, but they're different. They're going to throw your opponent, you know, kind of off guard. Played a match yesterday and pulled out, you know, Hera threw her on the table. She's like, you're playing Spectres? I'm like, yeah, I'm playing Spectres. Let's go. And then going through, she's like, I didn't know what to do because, you know, there was just so much value. I've never seen it. You know, I'm used to playing Bobas. That's what everyone plays. And it's that shock factor, which can, you know, help change the meta because, you know, people aren't used to it. And that's kind of how I did win, and how I usually take this deck, you know, 3 and 4, 2 and 1, is because of that shock value. They don't know how to play against this different deck. And kind of my goal with this video is, you know, talk about, you know, make a different deck, you know, have fun, because, you know, you could change the meta. Kind of on a sidetrack, you know, when I played Marvel Snap, I played Ronin, which was not a good card at the time, but because it was different, no one knew how to play against it. It won me games and got me up the ladder, because people didn't know how to deal with it. And that's, you know, how I build my decks. So kind of taking this thought process and everything we've really talked about, moving it to Twin Suns, which is, you know, why we're all here. We're playing Twin Suns. Same concept, you know, what do I want to do with my deck, and how do I want to do it, and what's my plan B? Right now, you know, we only have one set, so we don't have as much focus as we will in the future, but we can still start planning for it. You know, we have 50 cards. We have these kind of smaller synergies. You know, we have Rebel synergy, we have Imperial synergy, we have Force synergies. So these are a few synergies we could start playing with. Super excited for the next set, because, you know, they're adding bounties, they're adding Mandalorians. They're going to hopefully have more cards, because, you know, we're kind of still in the rebellion of everything. The Bad Batch could be rebels. Who knows? I mean, they're kind of the spark of the rebellion, which would be super cool. So that's kind of what we're kind of planning for here. And the main thing to focus on when building, a singleton deck of anything is kind of multiplying and getting more cards that cover a base. So for this, kind of taking it into what uses what and kind of the action, Rebel Assault, kind of like I was talking about earlier, you're attacking with 2 units, you're giving something, +2, okay? Forces with me, you're attacking with the unit, you're giving something +2, but also giving a shield token. Cool. And that's how we're going to start building our Twin Suns decks, is thinking about what do we want to do and multiplying that. So having multiple target removals. For this, we have Carabas, we have Strike True, 2 target removals. We're going to hopefully have more target removals in the future. Card draw, we've got, you can do Obi-Wan, and have a card draw with the Force, you have that Force synergy, things like that. So as we get going, and what I'm really going to make sure that I do when I'm doing my deck cores, my deck techs, those things, is to kind of group them up and to be like, hey, these are the cards that do this, and these are the cards that do this, and these are what we're doing with the deck. So that's going to be my goal. So hopefully this is a nice kind of foundation for building a different deck. Kind of to summarize, what does your deck want to do? What synergies do you have to kind of fill in the blanks? Where's your card draw, your target removal, ramp if you need it. But make sure, having a good time. So with that, let me know what kind of decks, you enjoy playing. Who are your favorite leaders? Who's your favorite cards? Just let me know so we can start talking about it. And until next time, may the Force be with you.